Hi, I'm Angela, and I study higher level pain modulation in the Vanderbilt lab. So pain is a normal, although uncomfortable, unpleasant part of life. It's a sense that helps protect you and allow you to navigate safely through the world, much in the way that vision or hearing does. Although, like all senses, it does sometimes go wrong. And that's when conditions like chronic pain develop, where you are experiencing pain, even if nothing's actually physically harming you. And I study what causes the brain to develop chronic pain conditions. So to start off with, I'm just going to talk about kind of what pain is. I think one of the most common scientific understandings of pain is the idea of a reflex where you touch something like a hot pan and it causes you to jerk back by sending a reflex through your spinal cord. And then, of course, it also sends a bunch of information to your brain where you learn from that experience. You learn not to do it again because you learn that fire is dangerous and can hurt you. But recent studies have actually shown that in addition to receiving signals about the pain, your brain also has a role in changing the way it feels to you. And that's what I study. So this idea that your brain can change the pain you feel has led to a distinction between nociception and pain, which are concepts that used to be considered pretty scientifically interchangeable and are now being distinguished. Nociception is the actual sensory input for the pain. So those are the nerves that are stimulated when you touch something that hurts you. When you touch the hot pan, you get nociception in your nerves. However, they're actually nearly constantly active, where you guys are sitting right now in your desks or in your beds or wherever you are. You're having very minor amounts of nociception that allow you to sit comfortably and without hurting yourself and make subconscious adjustments. It doesn't feel like pain to you, but it is the same receptors that cause you to feel pain in larger amounts. Then you have what we consider pain. And this is the negative mood state that's caused when you have high levels of nociception. So this is when you touch a hot pan, you get a lot of nociception, you experience a pain state. This intensity appears to be affected by your life experiences as well as your current state. If you're stressed or hungry or tired, you might experience more nociception. And this is the idea of a pain threshold, where some people feel like they have a higher or lower pain threshold. There actually is a basis that your experiences and your current state actually affects your pain threshold. The way we think this works is that the parts of your brain that are responsible for your memories and your emotions send signals down your spinal cord, modulating or suppressing your pain signals. And then the nociception comes up your spinal cord, and these two work together to create what you ultimately experience. In the cases where you might be sitting in a chair, this upward signal is so minor that it doesn't feel like pain to you at all. But as the nociception becomes more and more intense, you actually begin to feel pain or a pain state in your brain. And the idea or our hypothesis is that chronic pain condition develops when these upcoming signals are the same, but your descending modulation, the suppression becomes weaker and it no longer works to suppress that pain. So now the normal nociception that you would get from just sitting in a chair suddenly feels like you're being burnt or something like that. It feels as intense as something that is injuring you, and you feel like you're in pain all the time. So I study this in the context of the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex. This part of the brain is responsible for learned fear and adaptive behavior or conditioning. So you can see how this part of the brain would be important in telling you what kinds of pain should make you feel pain and what kind should be that more subconscious nociception. And I study this in a rat model, where basically we're looking at this part of the brain and we inject a molecule that works as a biological switch to regulate the neurons and receptors in that part of the brain. The molecule that we use is something that in other regions of the brain causes pain. So we tested that in this region of the pain and found that it did. In this graph, the higher numbers represent normal behavior. And as the numbers get lower, you experience that's showing that the rat is in more pain. So at the 30-minute mark, you can see the numbers get very low and we've successfully caused pain. So this shows that this part of the brain is involved in pain modulation because we were able to induce pain in an otherwise healthy rat. We were also able to reverse it. So this red graph is an injection of lidocaine, which is a nerve blocking drug, into the RBM, which is a part of the brain that's known to be involved in ascending and descending pain modulation. So this data basically says that this region of the brain is involved in pain, and it's regulated by that receptor that we were looking at, and that it goes through this ascending descending pathway that's already been established. So in the future, I want to look at what molecular mechanism is driving this pain and start adding more controls and more animals to gain statistical significance for this model. That's all. So I want to thank my lab, and thank you.